What's up, people? Welcome back. Well, I received a question about Linux, specifically GNOME 3 Linux, from Jordan Allison. Hello, Jordan. Now, Jordan says, can you do an in-depth video, 20 plus minutes, explaining why the operating system matters at all? People seem to only care about the desktop environment. And like you said, there is no difference between Debian 8, GNOME 3, Point Linux, GNOME 3. It seems like there is no difference between those two in Ubuntu GNOME 3 or Fedora GNOME 3. How do the underlying operating systems matter at all? Well, Jordan, I will answer the question. I don't think it'll take 20 minutes, hopefully. Now, let's go by this comment piece by piece. Operating systems matter at all? Well, I think they do, Jordan, especially in terms of stability. Nobody wants to run any operating system, whether it's Linux, Windows, or whatever, if it's not stable, if it keeps crashing, that's not going to be fun at all, is it? So I think the operating system itself, in terms of stability, that should be number one. At least it is on my list. People seem to only care about the desktop environment. Well, if you are a beginner or advanced user, but primarily for beginners, how the default desktop looks upon first booting or out of the box can be important, especially if you are new and if it's something you're going to stick with or find frustrating. Let's see here. No difference between Debian 8 GNOME 3 and Point Linux GNOME 3 and Ubuntu GNOME 3 and Fedora. Well, let's see. Debian 8, Point Linux, and Ubuntu GNOME, they all use the Debian repositories or Debian packages. Now, if we go to the Ubuntu website here it says Ubuntu and Debian are closely related. Ubuntu builds on the foundations of Debian's architecture and infrastructure, but there are important differences. Ubuntu has its own user interface, a separate developer community, though many developers participate in both projects, and a different release process. So I hope that answers your question about the Ubuntu, Debian, and Point Linux. For Fedora, they use, let's see, RPM packages which are not compatible with Debian, so that is a big difference there. But let's go take a more in-depth look at GNOME 2, or what it looks like in GNOME 3. I currently like the GNOME 2. This is Ubuntu Mate or Mate. When I first started using Linux years ago with Ubuntu, this is what I got used to: applications, places, system. And as a beginner back then, and even now if you are a beginner, this is the preferred method, I believe, to get used to something with Linux. Why? Because it's not difficult, it's intuitive. Consider these your 3 start buttons, if you want to call it that, especially if you are using Windows. So this, I believe, is very intuitive. Drop down menu, and just click on to where you want to go to your current piece of software. So this is easy. With GNOME 3, and I'm running GNOME 3 in a virtual box, I don't have it fired up here. With GNOME 3, I would call this probably keyboard centric, meaning, for example, you would hit on the Windows key, the super key, and do right here, you would do a search to the software application, to the specific software application that you want to do work in. Now this is great if you know exactly what you're looking for. But what if you're not sure? Well, this is where I think this is better. For example, let's say I want to do something with video, but I can't remember that piece of software. Well, application, sound and video, and it's probably going to be here if I could not remember what I wanted to do with a specific piece of software. So if you are a beginner, this is definitely going to be easier. Another thing with GNOME 3, if you don't install extra software called extensions, if you are a beginner, you are going to be lost. Now this has currently 58 pages, it seems, of software you can add to GNOME 3. If you know what you're looking for, like myself, it's not a big deal. If you are new, this can be time consuming, tiresome, even annoying. For example, if I wanted to install the weather extension or weather applet, and I already have it here, but with this I could just right click add to panel, type in WEA here, and there it is. I can just add that immediately. It is there by default. With GNOME 3, I think the current version of GNOME, I believe, has that, but Again, if you want to make it more user-friendly, you're going to have to go through pages of this. And this might be just a little bit too much. So for beginners, Jordan, even though GNOME 3 is not that difficult to learn, it is more to learn than, say, using something like this. All right, Jordan, what I hope that answers your question at least a little bit on the differences between the Debian, GNOME 3, Ubuntu, and Fedora, and how the operating systems and the desktop environments matter, especially if you are new to the world of Linux. All right, let's see, what else do I have here? I would like to do 2 future live events. The next one on my list here is the UK Show Live podcast. I would like to do that at a more timely manner, meaning maybe 6 p.m. here local time, New York time. It might be a little bit easier for you guys in the UK to hop in and listen versus doing something later and it's too late for you. So I have that on my list. And the second one on my list is maybe a YouTube for beginners, YouTube starter kit or something like that. I haven't decided yet. But if you would like to help sponsor one or both shows, please do. It would greatly be appreciated. I will have all the links below in the show notes. All right, well, Jordan and everybody, that is it for this one. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And as always, I will catch all of you sometime in the future.